Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking into a really haunting American crime story. It's a mystery that took decades, and really the evolution of forensic science, to finally solve.
It is.
This is the story of a man named Franklin Delano Floyd, who ran for years under this shield of aliases and the just catastrophic consequences of his decision to hide his main victim from the world.
Right. And our mission today is pretty complex. We're going to be charting the long, winding journey to identify this young woman. For years, she was only known by these false names, Sharon Marshall, Tonya Hughes.
Right.
But we need to understand not just her life under his control, but, and this is critical, how a policy blind spot in the mid-'70s allowed this whole tragedy to even begin.
And for this deep dive, our sources they're pretty extensive. We have everything from detailed court records, FBI case files, to the incredible investigative work done by journalists like Matt Birkbeck, who really kept this story alive.
He did.
The heart of it, for you listening, is really two things: the final identification of this woman and the just terrible fate of her young son.
Okay, let's unpack this. The staggering list of aliases this story begins with.
It really speaks volumes about the level of control Floyd had. When she died in 1990, in a suspicious hit and run in Oklahoma City, the authorities just listed her as an unidentified white female.
Just a Jane Doe.
The Jane Doe. For years, she was known by the identities he made up for her: Suzanne Davis, Sharon Marshall, that was during her high school years, and Tonya Hughes, or sometimes Tonya Dawn Tadlock, that was the name on her marriage license.
And for decades, none of those names led anywhere, right? Because they had no context. She wasn't a missing person because, as we're about to get into, nobody was officially looking for her.
Exactly. She was a ghost built entirely out of his paper lies.
So there was no database to check against.
Precisely. And that's why the big breakthrough didn't happen until 2014. It was thanks to this persistent work by forensic genealogists, investigators. DNA testing was finally able to match her to biological relatives.
And they could finally give her back her name. They gave her back her name. Suzanne Marie Sevakis, born around 1969 in North Carolina.
Wow. That moment, her identity was confirmed. It just underscores the incredible persistence of these investigators. You're talking about years of work. People like retired FBI agent Joe Fitzpatrick, volunteers at the Doe Network.
Yeah, they specialize in exactly this kind of thing.
They had her DNA, but they couldn't find a match in any missing persons system because she was never in it.
And that failure, that hole in the system, it traces back almost 40 years. To understand how Suzanne just vanished, you have to look at Franklin Delano Floyd himself.
Okay.
When he enters her life, he's using the alias Brandon Williams, and he's already a fugitive. He'd violated parole for bank robbery.
So not a small-time criminal.
Not at all. He'd also been arrested in 1973 for attempted kidnapping. This is a very dangerous man hiding in plain sight.
So he meets Suzanne's mother while he's actively on the run.
Correct. He met her mother, Sandra, who was recently divorced, in North Carolina around 1974. They married quickly. And then, in 1975, this terrible opportunity just falls into his lap.
What happened?
Suzanne's mother was sentenced to 30 days in jail for a really minor crime, writing a bad check for diapers for her infant son.
30 days, and that short period of time was all he needed.
That was the window. It created this legal vacuum that he just exploited perfectly. When the mother was released from jail, Floyd was gone.
And the kids.
All four of her children had vanished with him.
Oh my gosh, all four.
She must have been absolutely frantic. She did, thankfully, quickly find two of her daughters, Allison and Amy. Floyd had just abandoned them at a local social services agency.
But not Suzanne.
But 6-year-old Suzanne and her infant brother, Philip, were still gone.
So she rushes to the police, to the FBI, to report a kidnapping by a known fugitive. And the system just tells her it's a custody issue.
That is the crushing systemic failure here. The local police, even the FBI, they declined to investigate. They cited this legal interpretation from the time.
Which was?
Because Floyd was the stepfather, and he was technically the legal guardian while she was in jail, the authorities stated he apparently had a right to take the children.
That is unbelievable. A known fugitive has a right to take the children.
It's hard to imagine that holding up today, but because of that single negligent interpretation, a missing persons report was never filed for Suzanne Marie Sevakis.
And that's why she was a ghost.
That's why she was a ghost. The absence of that report crippled the search before it could even begin.
So before we move on with Suzanne's story, what about the brother, the infant, Philip? What happened to him?
That's a really important update to the story. For a while, some authorities presumed he was dead. like what later happened to Michael.
Right.
But later investigative work confirmed that Philip, who was just a baby when he was taken, was adopted, and he was found alive as an adult.
Wow. So the mother was eventually reunited with him.
She was. It's this small, necessary piece of closure in an otherwise just horrific story.
Okay, so Floyd disappears with 6-year-old Suzanne. They vanish into this underworld of aliases, moving across states. What did investigators find out about her life for those next 15 years?
The only word for it is trauma. Investigators later found about 40 photographs in Floyd's truck. They depicted Suzanne from, age 4 into her preteen years.
And the photos confirmed the abuse?
They confirmed long-term sexual abuse. He kept them like trophies. This wasn't just an abduction. It was prolonged psychological and physical enslavement.
And yet, and this is where the story is just so... It's heartbreaking. You see this intense contrast between the abuse he inflicted and Suzanne's own resilience, her potential.
Absolutely. While she was living under the name Sharon Marshall, she managed to excel. By all accounts, a standout student in Georgia. She graduated high school in 1986.
And she earned a scholarship, didn't she?
A full scholarship to Georgia Tech University to study aerospace engineering. Just think about that for a second. The potential there. A path to a completely different life.
That's a brilliant, determined young woman, basically charting her own escape through her intelligence. But she never got to go.
She never attended. Floyd moved her to Tampa instead.
What did he do to stop her?
It was coercive control. The transition from this high-achieving student to a young woman working as a dancer in clubs, it was a direct result of his control. By preventing her from going to Georgia Tech, he isolated her.
Cut her off from any support network.
Exactly. It ensured she remained completely reliant on him and the reality he had manufactured for her.
And that control just continued, right up to the birth of her son Michael in 1988.
Yes. And while the early stories, likely from Floyd himself, suggested he was the biological father, a later paternity test proved he was not.
But that didn't matter to him.
The control was absolute. In 1989, Floyd and Suzanne, now using the aliases Clarence Hughes and Tonya Tadlock, they got married in New Orleans.
So why the marriage, if he wasn't even the father?
Well, sources offer two ideas. One, it could have been a marriage of convenience, to give Michael a father on paper. But the more likely, darker interpretation is that this was his final move. Total legal control.
So by marrying her, he legally cemented his dominance over her and her child.
Made it that much harder for her to ever escape.
And this whole trail of lies and control, it all culminates in her death in Oklahoma City in 1990.
Yes, in April 1990, Suzanne was killed. The official ruling was a hit and run, but it was immediately suspicious. She was found with groceries scattered everywhere, but the bruising, a large hematoma. It was all highly inconsistent with a simple car accident.
And Floyd was the main suspect.
He was, but he was never formally charged with her death.
The suspicion just skyrockets, though, when you look at what he did right after she died.
Absolutely. Just hours after she was buried, under her fake name, of course, Floyd tried to collect on 2 life insurance policies he'd taken out on her.
Hours later.
Hours. And he used false social security numbers to do it. That desperate, greedy move is what finally flagged him in the system. It led to his arrest as a fugitive and finally confirmed his real identity, Franklin Delano Floyd.
So his capture in 1990 then blows open another case entirely, doesn't it? It reveals a whole other victim.
That's right. While they were examining his truck, authorities found something just horrific. There were 16 pictures taped to the gas tank of a beaten and tied adult female.
And they identified her.
They did. She was identified as Cheryl Ann Commesso. She was a fellow dancer at Suzanne's club who had been missing since 1989. Her skeletal remains were later found. 2 bullet wounds.
So Suzanne's suspicious death leads to Floyd's arrest, which leads to solving Cheryl Comesso's murder.
Correct. Floyd was charged with Comesso's murder in Florida. He was convicted in 2002 and sentenced to death.
So, justice for Cheryl. But the fate of Suzanne's son, Michael, was still agonizingly unresolved.
Michael Hughes, who was just a toddler when his mother died, he was placed in foster care. And by all accounts, he was doing really well with his foster family in Oklahoma.
But Floyd was still trying to control him from prison.
He was. And that led to a huge moment in 1992 when a paternity test proved definitively that Floyd was not Michael's biological father.
And that allowed the court to finally terminate his rights.
It did. And severing that last tie to Suzanne's life, that seems to be what triggered his final terrible act of vengeance.
It was a reaction to losing control.
A violent, planned reaction. On September 12, 1994, He was facing a court hearing that would permanently end his rights. So he drove to Michael's elementary school in Choctaw, Oklahoma.
What did he do?
He forced the principal, James Davis, at gunpoint to help him abduct 6-year-old Michael. He then tied the principal to a tree and just disappeared with the boy in the principal's truck.
Floyd was captured 2 months later, but Michael was gone.
He was gone. And for years, authorities tried to find him. Floyd, being the manipulator he was, he offered to reveal where Michael was, but only in exchange for immunity.
Which they refused.
Appropriately, yes. They refused.
And that silence around Michael's fate lasted for 20 years. What finally broke it in 2014? The same year, Suzanne was identified.
The final horrifying piece of the puzzle came from Floyd himself. He was already on death row for Cheryl Comesso's murder, and he chose to confess to an FBI agent.
And the confession was?
Brutal in its simplicity. He admitted he killed Michael on the same day as the abduction. He said, and this is a quote, "I shot him twice in the back of the head to make it real quick."
My God. And his reason, his motive?
The motive was chillingly banal. He claimed Michael was just being a typical 6-year-old, out of control. That was enough for Floyd to execute him.
A 6-year-old boy.
He claimed he buried the body near the Texas state line, but Michael's remains have sadly never been found.
So after 40 years of lies and terror, the details finally came into focus. Suzanne got her name back, and Floyd faced his reckoning.
These resolutions were so hard-won. Suzanne finally had her true identity restored. Suzanne Marie Sevakis and Floyd died on Florida's death row in 2023.
And when you look back at Suzanne's brief life, the thing that just hits you is the stolen potential. A full ride to Georgia Tech for aerospace engineering, traded for a life of abuse, all because of one man.
And we have to go back one last time to that policy loophole that allowed it all to happen. That 1975 decision that a non-biological stepfather had a legal right to take the children, that was the blind spot.
It meant a known fugitive could just walk away with a 6-year-old girl and her baby brother.
And the authorities turned a blind eye. It gave him 15 more years to operate, leading directly to the deaths of 2 innocent women and the murder of a child.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It certainly shows the power of a persistent investigation of DNA technology, but it really highlights how a seemingly minor legal decision back in the 70s can have these catastrophic, irreversible consequences for an entire family.
Then we'll leave you with this final thought. While Suzanne's identity was confirmed and Michael's murder was solved by confession, Suzanne's own death in 1990 is still officially unsolved. It's still a hit and run.
So was that ruling just a convenient cover for Floyd, or was there another story there?
It's worth thinking about because one FBI agent noted that while Floyd confessed to everything else, the full truth of Suzanne's death was, quote, "the one thing Floyd won't talk about."
A difficult but necessary deep dive.
Thank you for joining us.